3, 2, 1. Hey, are we here? Oh, I think my,
Yes.
oh, now I just unmuted. Never mind. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
A second, I think. It says repeat. No.
It might take a little bit longer here, guys.
Why is YouTube refusing to connect?
Is it refusing the live stream itself?
I don't know.
I will check on my phone, see what happens. Well, it says 8 people are here.
Do you see yourself?
I don't know yet. I just got to skip the ad first. Yes, you do see me wearing my glasses. Okay, guys, for some reason we don't have a chat space. So what I'm going to try and do is look down at my phone every once in a while and read them. So bear with us. We are also doing a unique camera angle today because of how close we wanted you to be able to be so that you could see this really fine work. So hi guys. And these are going to be off and on all day. I can guarantee it. Okay, let's see. Okay. Alrighty, I pulled it up on live chat. Hopefully I can read it as we go. Or not.
All right, if you want to give it to me, I can read the
Oh, great.
chat's questions.
There you go.
Kind of monitor that for us.
Okay. So let's take a look. We flipped the cameras around a little bit. So in order to see these really close up, we can put those on the big screen for you.
Oh, the big screen.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so these are the ones that we're making today. And I know that Debbie probably had the opportunity to show you guys these already, but we're going to do it one more time. Why not? Now, I'm not going to promise that I can sew quite right holding these at a unique angle. So I'm going to give you that heads up first. Okay, so what do we have in our kit? There are going to be some things that you'll need extra. One is your tape. I did use score tape on the back of mine on the first round when I made this last set, just because that's what was handy and I'd have to go dig for my regular wrapping tape. But Scotch tape does hold a little bit better, but then you'll need this as well to attach 2 of your cards to mirroring and cardstock. And then you'll need some little scissors. Okay, so what should be in your kit is this little pin. It is a pokey tool on the end. It's really fine. It helps keep the holes small enough so that you don't see them normally. That doesn't have an issue for people because you have to be able to see the holes. So we'll talk about a trick that you can do that with as well, other than reading glasses. You should have a set of little foil gold stickers in a doily pattern. A little pack of Christmas. There's the other portion. You'll definitely need those for, so don't lose them. And you'll have a poinsettia pack which will have various different, I shouldn't say a pack, you'll have little pieces of poinsettia. There's about 7 that we need. They normally come on a dazzles like this, and it gives you multiples in both leaves and the poinsettias. So that's one kind, and there's our other kind. And they're really pretty. And they work really well if you don't want to have to make your own flowers. Then on top of it, you'll have your kit that looks like this. So if you want to go ahead and open it, I've already opened mine because I did some prep work for us. You'll get a card like this. And you'll also get the Stitch and Do thread that I put on 2 of Debbie's business cards. And the reason why I did this was just because this is so hard, because it's 3 different strands put together to put into your needle. It's such a small needle hole that this thread just was really tough. And I know that for me personally, I spent 30 minutes the first time that I made them trying to just even thread the needle. So I made the decision to go ahead and give you some of the Stitch and Do. Now we made almost 20 kits, and I can tell you that we had enough for all the kits on a spool and a half of this. So in other words, this goes a long ways. So if you do decide that you want to purchase some of the Stitch and Do threads, some of them are shiny like this one. Others are a mix of different colors. Like we've got one that has blues with various different tints of blue in them. They're a lot of fun to have around as an extra backup, just in case maybe when you get a kit like this, you can't put the threads through. So we will still use the red and the green because it is a single joined thread, and it is pretty simple to thread up. And then inside your kit, you are going to have, inside the kit within a kit, and you should have one of these. This is also in your kit, and it is really important to have because this is how we're going to protect not only our little pinpoint on that, but it also helps protect your table and things underneath it from getting holes in it. So there is a set of directions, and there are things in various different languages, and English is on the back side. So if you want to be able to find it and figure out how to do it, it will be folded in on the back side of things.
A bunch of people who've logged in. Stephanie, Thomas, Betty Gozel, Roberta, Thelma, Andrea, Brenda. I think I got Wanda.
Hi, guys.
So you got Kathy Girl's here. Alice is here.
Lots of people.
So you've got a nice group.
In your kit as well, you'll have 2 just simple card spaces. It was in order to get a card that was a little bit bigger than these so that we could add Mary around it. If you open your kit, you may notice that it just looks a little flat. If you look at the comparison from one to the other, when I opened these first, I went, oh, I don't know if we should teach this, but I'll open it, I'll give it a try, and let's see what happens. And the threading, and by adding some of the extra pieces to it, the foiling and things, you can see how it just really brightened up the card and the difference that the threads and everything made. So we'll have 4 of these. I did do some of them already so that I won't be here just stitching and stitching and stitching, because it does take some time. It's not a fast process, but it is enjoyable. It is relaxing for those of you that do embroidery. This is more an actual embroidery stitch that they use. Our dot and do's that we have that are stitch and do's are actually more like string art. With what you used to do with the little nails and the hammer and the wood, and you'd wrap your thread around it. These are very similar to those. And we've got a lot of different ways to do the stitch and do's. They come with lots of opportunities. And so if you guys find that you like this and you're interested in this, then we can always branch out into some other ideas too. So let us know what you think.
Roberta said she used to use that kind of thread for dream checker earrings. It's really good stuff, she said.
Yeah, the stitch and do, I love it. It's really great. So you can use it for obviously more than just cards.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also have 2 sheets of the gold Mary. And I believe that that's it. So let's go ahead and start from here. I'm going to start in the beginning just because, and I don't know if my granddaughter Emma is on with my mom. They are hanging out together today. And in fact, they've been hanging out for about a week so that my husband and I could go camping in the woods with nobody else around. It was great. So I'm nice and refreshed, and now I'm a ball of nerves for being on online. Okay. So what I've done is an example. We'll have 3 different types of stitches that we'll be doing. One is a crossover stitch that makes these little stars. The one that curves around things, you'll definitely need to be able to do that one. This is one that I've done almost all of the curving around. If you can see right through here, you'll see the little white holes that it created for us to follow through, and all the rest of this is already stitched. So this is a curved stitch, and I'm sure they call it something different, but I am not an embroiderer by nature, so I do not recall the name. I can look it up though. So this one is where we would use our straight stitch. And then this one is kind of its own unique. I don't believe that they actually call it a particular stitch. So I did a couple of different things on this one. This one that I have, it is a double layer that I'm working on today. It's a double thread. And this is the single thread. I don't know if that will get in close enough or not. So you can see how one fills in more than the other, and that just becomes something that you have to decide which way you like it. They don't say that you have to use a double. I will say that the double, if you do decide that you want to use this gold thread, don't double your thread. It tangles up really well as well. So you've got lots of knots in the process. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to start with a straight just a straight stitch on a piece of paper. So my granddaughter made this lovely little hedgehog, and in it came this great little needle. So thank you, Emma, for letting me use your things and using your needle for our live feed today. Okay, so what I did was, and anybody can do this if you've got just a needle and thread. You can take and practice if you don't have your kit yet. You are more than welcome to practice along while we do one of these. And so then that way you can maybe get the feel for things that you might have a question about as we go. So if you want to grab a needle, thread, and a piece of paper, you can do it that way. If you don't have a foam pad from any of your items, your stamping pad will work. This one, you can just use this piece to use it to poke through, and it won't harm your pad. Oh, need to bring it up closer. And you can remove it too, so that makes it easy. Okay, so first things first, I went through and I made my dots with a Sharpie in a straight line, and then I did some in a curve so that we can see the difference between how to do some of these. I then took a thumbtack and I just pushed in, and this is a fairly large hole because I'm using yarn so that you guys can see it with this big needle. You don't need this big needle to practice. You just use a regular needle. But I'm using this so that it's easier for everybody to see. So you'll just go through and you'll put a hole right into your dots that you made. And I gave them a good spacing for this straight stitch. And then I got them a little bit closer with the curve, because if you don't have them a little bit closer, then you end up with some really unique and weird lines, just because of the stitching space. So I tried to make those a little bit closer. You can actually make a fairly long section of these. Let me see here. On this one, there's nothing connecting from the top to the bottom of the corner. Look at that. But it just snaps right into place. So you would never know that it wasn't stitched down somewhere else on the line. But it only called for a hole here and a hole here, a hole here and here, here and here and here and here. So because of that, we've got some of these. And make sure that since we wrap them around a card with the Stitch and Do ones, you may find that there's a little bit of bend to them. Number one, make them a double thread when you do this. And then number two, you'll want to make sure that you just do it tautly, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So my straight edge is now going to go, and watch, I'll have trouble threading this. Okay. Nope. Oh, I did. Okay. There we go. Any questions, or does anybody need or want to go grab a needle and thread and paper before we start?
No questions, but Susan Bridgens has joined us.
Hi, Susan. Okay. So what you're going to go through first is we're going to go through the back to the front. And when you're poking your holes, you'll notice that on the back of everything, it has these raised bumps. It's okay. It will fix itself as you sew. So if you're coming from the back to the front, it's okay if a little bit of that section that we poke the hole through comes through. You won't see it in the end. So you start in the back and you pull your thread all the way through, and for fastness sake, the first one that you do, you just want to go ahead and take your tape. Like I said, you can use regular Scotch tape. No one will ever see the back of your card, and you can attach it this way. Or you can use some of our finger lift tape and just put it on like this. And it will hold. You don't even need to worry about peeling off the back. It's just something that's going to hold your thread in place. Okay. So from here, we're going to go down and through and just pull. A little bit too high, huh? Let me move it further forward. Maybe that will help.
We got a couple people just watching tonight.
Okay.
Haven't gotten their kits just yet, so they're watching and learning.
If you see something that you're questioning, just holler. Okay, so it would make a lot of sense that you go through and you just pop it through the next hole. And you may want to do it this way. There's really not a right or a wrong. And you can just keep going over and over and over, just in and out with those. But the problem is we've got this gap right here. So you can either sew them all and then come back and fill in your gaps on the opposite sections. Or the way that embroidery normally does things is that you go and you go back through the hole that you just went through. And it will give you a neater stitch, in my opinion. I don't know if any of you embroider a cross stitch, but I found that by doing it this way, you're able to keep the right tautness together. And maybe this might not be tight, but by the time that you get to the end and you're going back the other way, you may be finding that you're pulling your threads a little bit taunter. And so then you'll see a big difference between the rise and fall of this one being pulled really tight compared to being a little bit looser. So we go through and we just keep on going. So you'll come through here and then go straight down and pull. And if these larger demonstrations help at all for future reference, we'll just keep doing it. Then you're going to go down through that hole, up through this one, and then go back in again right here. And I can do the whole thing if you want me to. Or if you think that you kind of get the idea from here, we can move on to the next stitch. Okay, so you can see also why it's important to actually have a pattern to go off of, because I just threw these dots on and you can see how it's kind of wavering here and there, and that's just because of the difference of me not being a machine or a person that's figured all of these out. So, okay.
Stephanie says she does it the same way that you're demonstrating.
Great. So go back in where we just were and go back down and around. After you get through the first 2 to 3 stitches, you won't have as much of that need to do a gap. This one, because it was our next one, we'll have to go back and through. But then the next one that we do, you won't have to go back through a hole that's already been done. It's kind of interesting how it does that. So if I pull through here and go through this hole, then it will just automatically go into this one, and then this one will have to go back into this one. The other option, if it helps keep you from not getting confused, because that happens to me frequently, you can just keep going the exact same way and go and pull it on through and then go to the back. You will use a little bit more thread. Let me show you why. Because when you do that, it's going to give you this piece that goes a little bit longer. So don't worry about your thread. You have quite a bit of this gold thread. I did give you extra, and since that seems to be the main one that we will use for those straight stitches, this is what we will do. And so don't worry too much about the need for thread versus not. So by doing it that way, I know that I'm always going to come back and through, up through the hole, and then down and back and through. Again, the way that I'm doing it right now, you'll use a little bit more thread, but you'll have, I believe, a little bit of a less seamless type of stitching. You won't notice the difference in the stitches. And the good news is for example, right here, I've got a little bit more than what I should. And you can always come and pull from the back to tighten them up. And because this is a card, it's not something that's going on a piece of clothing. We can just pull on the back piece a little bit tighten that down and just use a little bit of your tape. So you don't have to go through and pull each one like you would in normal embroidery. Because in normal embroidery, if you made it not tight enough, you would have to go through and pull from one side and pull from the other and pull from one side and pull from the other. So we're going to try and alleviate that and just make it simple because nobody's going to see this on the back. So it's okay what it looks like. It doesn't have to be pretty on the back.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to cut this off here. And then we'll go to our next stitch. And I should probably just, for the sake of calling it by its right name, the English. Okay. So one of the embroidery stitches, they call one a stem stitch, and a stem stitch is, which one? The stem stitch is, bear with me, I thought I had these all memorized, but I don't. Okay. So the first one, and this is how I kind of figured it. I figured that this is number 1, this is number 3, this is number 4. But I could be totally incorrect. Sorry guys, bear with me. Okay, actually this is card number 1. It's not a stitch at all. They just call it a straight line, straight stitch. Okay, so this one and this one are the stem stitch. And then there is the other little star stitch, and they didn't call it that necessarily. So they didn't give it a name. So specifically, this curved line is your stem stitch, the rest are straight edge lines. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to do our stem stitch. And you come up through the hole, and the directions, I don't like how the directions read. I'm somebody that's good with directions, but I just didn't like it. It seems a little bit harder and more convoluted. So hopefully I'll be making this easy for you. Make sure that you tape your back right there before you go any further. And you're going to count 1, 2, 3, and you're going to put your hole through the third hole. So there should be 2 holes in between. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come sorry guys, this is what happens when you're trying to do it upside down. You're going to come back through and go back 2. So you go 1, 2, and put it through the second. And from there, once you start it, you've got it. So from there, you just are literally, rather than having to go 1, 2, 3, you know that you just put it through the next empty hole. It is so much easier than the way the directions give it, because it talks about how you have to count up to 6. And so each one is a 6 stitches, and yeah, it just wasn't that much fun for me. So you're going to go back 2, 1, 2, go up through the back. Can you see this okay, Bryce? Because I can't see and look at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why you want to do this stitch is because it works with the curve. So you put it through the next empty hole, and now you're going to have to definitely count back, just because you now have filled that empty hole from this one. Now they're filled. So you're going to go 1, 2, go through the back side, for that too. Mr. Hedgehog got in the way. Okay. And then you go in through the next hole and count backwards. And I should say while I'm doing a few of these, just so that you guys can see the stitching, 1, 2. I forgot to say at the very get-go that Debbie is here, but she's in the background in her office doing taxes. So we want to make sure that she has the opportunity to do those in the midst of everything else. So put it in the next empty hole. Does anyone feel like they need to see this up close anymore, or do you feel like we can move on and we can do a little bit more of it on the finer looking thread? Because this does look quite different than the usual. And we can just go on to the next stitching. Through the empty hole, count back 2, go up through it. So you'll literally come right back up the hole you were just in front of. 1, 2, 1, 2, and right on up and through. There we go. Do we have any opinions? What do you think?
Not yet. It's all quiet. There's a little delay. It's a little longer today.
Okay.
So it's like a 10-second delay, maybe.
Well, I can be patient. Not a problem. Not looking through those when I'm not looking at something is a little bit harder. I'm getting
Yeah.
used to the reading glass idea. I've had bifocal glasses for a while, and I wasn't able to see what I wanted to see for crafting. It wasn't close enough, and it just wasn't doing the right thing. So the recommendation was given that since I have worn contacts in the past and I don't mind wearing them, that if I went with contacts, I'd see better for far distance, and then I could choose a stronger bifocal for when I want to craft close up. So for those of you that maybe are having a little bit of trouble, I've even found that I can, if I'm wearing my glasses, it looks hilarious, but you can actually add on a reading glass that's like 1 higher than your regular bifocal. So it's just a 1 reading glass from the dollar store, and you just put those right on over the top of your glasses, and you can get that really close look if you're still needing a bifocal that isn't quite strong enough.
Looks like we've got 3 people that say they all look good. They've got it. I'm okay with this. So it looks like we can move on to demo a card.
Demo a card. All right. One more demoing card. Actually, one more fake card. I grabbed some purple for everyone. With this card, I'm just going to go through and do the 1 stitch that's the star stitch. And that's just because we want to make sure that you can see them up close. So I'm only going to do 1. And the concept behind it, and when you look at the stars on the stocking, you will see a very, very fine line. It's a very fine line that goes in between one to the other. And I think that you somehow need a little bit of that. This one is going to show just because it's a black line. But if I can make it light enough, hopefully it won't show too much. Okay, that helps for you to be able to see, to keep track, because even with having those little lines there, I had to take one out just because it wasn't the right kind. I'm also choosing thread that may be a little bit, or I should say yarn, that may be a little bit more likely to be hard to see on this piece of card. And it was intentional because on these, it's very difficult to see on these regular ones that we've got that we're going to be working on. It can be very difficult to see the little holes and the little lines because it is so up close, and the paper behind it is a little dark. So I want to kind of get your eye used to what it might be needing to look at. Okay. Threading up my giant needle. And for this, you're going to go through the back, pull up and through. I think that should be more than enough. Tighten it on down. The directions do say that if you are going to put a piece of tape down, that you put the tape down not where your holes are at. And the reason why is because you'll have to possibly put a hole through the tape and it can push out the tape and off of your paper. So try and move it. I do not necessarily get every single one, but it doesn't harm it if you do it. You just have to kind of keep an eye for the back end. So you're literally going straight across one to the other. Then I just go to the next hole in line. The idea is saving your paper, saving your thread. So then you're going to come back up through here and do the next one across. So on the back side, it looks like that. And you should, from the back side, only see these round stitches on this side to this side. So going straight down, sort of, kind of, not a straight line. And then go to the next one. And I will try and remember when we get to the regular cards to flip things over so that you can see them a little bit better, because they are white on the back, so it does kind of help a little bit. So this is our little star mark, and let's see.
Maybe you can tip that up just a little bit toward the camera so we can see the star. That's better.
There's the star. And you can see, because I've got white paper, it's got the white inside, and it's just got the color on the top. It's pushed through the white paper. So you will not see this kind of thing in the card, but you might if you decide that you're going to use some sort of card to do this in the future. You can push the white back in and through from the front, or you can, in this case, this got ripped off a little bit. You can go in and touch it up with a little bit of a marker. So hopefully that will be a neat little trick for future reference.
Or just buy solid
buy solid cardstock, which we have a lot of. They're 12 by 12 packs.
Emma and Mom are watching. Emma says,
"Hi,
you're
Emma.
cool."
Am I cool? Really cool? Were you there from the very get-go? Or did you miss a little bit? Made my holes into this stitch mark. This stitch mark is actually what's right at the top here underneath this poinsettia. In this particular case, it won't matter as much because we're putting a poinsettia right on top. But I had already done it on here, and as I was going through and doing it, I realized that there was something that I needed to show you guys. After the fact, I realized that this is one of those places where you could have an error and we need to just talk about a way to fix it. So Emma, just in case you did miss it, I used your needle and some yarn from your hedgehog that you made for Lily. And so Lily's my other granddaughter. And so I am using that in order to teach class today. And if you weren't so kind to share with me, I would never have it. And I wouldn't be able to show all the other people to be able to see how to sew this. So thank you very much. Just to give this a little bit of the pink color so that you can see what I mean by it blending a little bit more. This is a stem stitch. So it's still the curving stitch. And in order to curve, we've got to go through and do that process of coming up through the back, pull through enough, going up through the back, counting 1, 2, 3, going through the hole. And then counting 2 back, 1, 2, coming up back through.
So is this stitch just like the other stitch?
It
except
is.
we're
It's
going
the stem
around?
stitch, and the other one was going around, had a curve to it. If I would have just finished it, it would have curved. So this is the exact same stitch, but the reason why I'm showing you this one is because when you hit this tight of a curve, there can be some problems. So I want to make sure that I show you how to fix it so that it won't be frustrating to you later, because it would be frustrating to me. Count back 2, 1, 2, come up through that hole. And people that have embroidered, they probably will know all about this, but I kind of came across it as a surprise. So empty hole, count back 1, 2, put it through that hole. Put it through the empty hole. And this is where you might start seeing that the problem can exist.
Mom says, no, we just got home and Dad is watching also. We're sitting eating ice cream cones.
Oh, that is so nice of you guys to do that without me. I'm glad that you're having fun, Emma. Okay, so go down and through. And this is where you can start to see it. I'm going to go all the way down because of that curve. So count back, go through the hole back 2. Go through the empty one. And watch, it will not be a problem with this because I did something funny last time. Who knows? But we'll give it a try. Go up. And go in. So sometimes you can see, and apparently it did not happen this time around, sometimes it will start looking more like a string art and your lines will come across here. And what I want to do for you is kind of show what you can do to fix that. So let's say this is coming across with a little bit more of a string art look. So you've got kind of something that looks like this all going through to your holes. And you don't have that nice little curve. What you can do is that you come up through the back side, get on the inside hole. So I come from the opposite side and then I push back and through. I hold up any yarn that's on that side of it and I just raise it up. In this particular case, you can see how I missed one of them. And I just raise it up and come back up and put it through the hole on the opposite side. Does it give a little stitch that's kind of different? Yes. When you're working on something this small, you won't see it, but that is a way to pull it and snug it up so that you keep a nice line. And so if that does happen to you, which it can, that's just a little simple way to be able to fix that for future reference. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, hey Brittany, everyone say hi to Brittany. Hi everybody. So I went ahead and I did start some of these, and the reason why I did was just due to timing for those of you who joined us a little later. Okay. Oh no, I didn't. Did I? Yes, okay. I thought maybe I forgot to re-tape my needle to the back. So when you are going through and you are looking on the back of your card, on the back of this is a little piece of tape, and this is where you'll find your needle. So they have a needle already set up for you, and it is an itty bitty. So like I said, it may be a little bit harder for you to see what I'm doing, but I will do the best that I can. So while I am getting this prepped to go, I will tell you that I mentioned our camping trip. My husband and I just wanted to spend some time together away from the house and away from the amount of people that are in my home. So with that, looking for the scissors. Must have slid
Betty
to the
says
side.
hi. Susan says hi. Roberta says hi. And she misses you. And Stephanie says hi.
Okay. So my husband and I went out and we boondocked, which is basically going on to Forest Service land. We've got a lot of it here in Oregon. And with that, sorry guys, I apparently can't talk and thread a needle at the same time. Hey Lauren. Hello. How are you? I'm alive. You're alive.
Barely.
Long day at work?
It was today, yeah.
It was recommended that if you do have trouble threading your needle, that you can try putting a little tiny dot of glue on the end. And I tried that on the gold one since that one was so tough for me. But I did not try it on the green or the red just because it didn't work for me on the gold. So. Okay. So I get my tape ready to go with these because they can slide through so easily. You go up through the hole on the back. And you pull on through. And this will still knot up on you if you're not careful. What I found that I did was that for the most part, you can pull them out. Nope, not that time around. Okay, so we'll have a little bit of a shorter thread. Yay! Sorry, guys. Okay, so up and through the middle hole. This middle hole is going to be bigger because you are putting all the thread back through it, however many times this wonderful little piece.
Stephanie shares that she uses a needle threader.
Yes. And I thought about that, but the concern was that not everybody would have a needle threader handy. So if you do decide that this is something that you like doing, I absolutely recommend. It doesn't cost that much, but just it does help a lot. So I agree. Thank you for the tip, Stephanie. Okay, so now that I've gotten through the middle hole and I've taped the back, I can now go in through the front. It depends on where you want your tree trunk to stick out from. I did mine last, but on this one we can do it first just to see what the differences are between the two. It does give it a little bit of a different look, but not too much. So these holes are all just printed on here. So when you go through, you are going to have to go through and punch with your pin all the little holes. And I left some of them still in some of my other cards just to be able to do a few of them so that you could see it with a pin versus one of these. And it gives a much finer hole than this would. Obviously, that was for the bigger yarn. Okay, so you put it down through the first one. And then you go up through the back. So as you can see from this, there's lots of in the back. You've got basically a tree from the front and the back. And you come in and you just keep working it. And in order for this to stay with the neatest look, try and keep your threads from sitting on top of one another. So when you go back through your hole, try and put your thread next to the other thread that you have. You don't have to, it will just kind of keep it looking a little bit neater. But only you will know that it's not exactly how you wanted it to be. No one else will. All it looks like is a lot of work on your part. But I tend to be very picky in my crafting, so I tend to go a little bit slower. And I'm not the fastest person when it comes to crafting. So up and through the back again, and then back through. And these little white dots really do help you see where you're going. Even though they're poked through a little bit, you've got just enough of a roundness to them, and I think you can see them. I think that you can see them on the screen even, depending on how I tilt it. You can see those little white specks, and it does help you guide it, even though it's such a small hole. It really does help. If you're doing it on white paper, like the Stitch and Do's, they have a gray little hole, and those to me are actually a little bit harder to see. But
Roberta had a great idea that at the dollar store you can get the little travel sewing kits that have sometimes a needle threader in them.
Very good idea. Yes,
So,
agreed.
tip.
I forget. That's not the camera that I'm looking at. That's the camera I'm looking at. So my husband and I went out into the middle of the boonies, and boondocking means that you basically, whatever you have is what you've got. So you get to stay on the Forest Service land for free, so you're not having to pay camping fees, but you also don't have, for us, we have a camping trailer, and we have electric and water and things like that. It would be nice to have fully running, but we made the decision we were going to give it a try. Probably boondocking, we've decided, is not the best in 30-degree weather, but we didn't freeze either. But we did go through our propane a little bit faster than what we were hoping to stay warm. So we get out there, it's beautiful, it's nice and green, there's not much mud on the road, it's been dry and clear, and when we looked at it, we knew that we were running the risk of it possibly snowing on Tuesday, and we were coming back on Tuesday. On Sunday, we woke up to 3 inches.
A little bit more.
This way?
Here.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just going to tilt up a little tiny bit. See if we
Will
can.
that help? Okay.
See if we can. That way, when you flip over, we get to see what's going on.
It's the difference of the way my hand works too, guys. So I almost thought about the idea of flipping the phone around because I am left-handed. So I naturally hold things a little bit differently. And while I can sew with my right hand, I'm very slow at it. So we woke up on Sunday morning to about 3 inches of snow on the ground and on top of our trailer that it had snowed the night before or during the middle of the night. And we decided we weren't going to boondock it for that long in that kind of weather. We weren't sure that we could get off the mountain as it was. So it was beautiful, but our goal was to get our little, and I will tell you, we don't have a huge trailer. It's 22 feet. And we don't have a big pickup truck to pull it either. We made the decision when we bought our Jeep Cherokee that we would buy one that had enough pull power, because from the factory they make a tow package that actually can pull a regular size trailer. You have to have this certain amount of weight, a lighter trailer, in order to be able to have more space. But my husband says that he is now riding Jeep Cherokee to tell them all about how wonderful our Jeep is, because he definitely felt the way that it pulled and towed, and there was ice and everything else on the road, and it just went right through it with our trailer behind. He did say that he was glad that I brought all my craft stuff because it added to the weight in the back of the trailer. He said without all that stuff in the back, it would be a lot lighter and we might be sliding. But with all that craft stuff, I think we're just fine. It figures. So you just literally are going through, and you're going through that middle hole, and you're going up and through and around. And it will take me a good amount of time to sew this. So I'm using this kind of as an example between this and the examples that we gave earlier. I'm not going to finish the card completely, because if I do, it will be here forever.
I see midnight here. Like it's midnight where Susan is.
It's midnight where Susan is.
She's in the UK.
Oh, hello, Susan. Nice to have you.
Yes. And Kim's joined us.
Hi, Kim. Midnight, huh? That's due diligence. We appreciate that you're here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of you give up, or your husbands give up their dinner time on the East Coast, because we tend to run into dinner time for the East Coast a little bit. So I'm glad that we're able to do that. Okay, so this gives you the idea. If the tree came up and around and I got all the threads done, basically what you will see is a line. I'll try and give you the idea here. You'll just basically be seeing a line that goes over the top of those. It means that you'll have to pull some of it out of your way, but it kind of gives it a little bit more of a look of a stump because it cuts it off, versus here where I did it last, and it kind of looks like it's growing up into the tree.
Susan asked roughly about how long does it take to make the card?
So each one is going to take you different amounts of time. I would say that for doing all four, I think it took me about 3 hours. So, and I did it in front of the TV. So it does, if you look up, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm crafting in front of the TV, I tend to listen to TV and not necessarily watch it while I craft. But there were times where I would look up and I would see the TV and watch it here and there if it got to a good part. So, so I would say 3 to 4 hours. The second time around when I was doing this, it went a lot faster. So if you are somebody that does embroider or cross stitch or do any of that, I believe that you will be able to whip through it a little bit faster. It will go faster as well if you take shorter amounts of double yarn. So if you do it in singles, you won't have the knot issues that I had. just now as an example. But the longer you get, the more likely that you're going to get a knot somewhere in your piece that will tangle. So then you're flipping it over and you're untangling it. So I personally have not come up with the idea yet of, do I just do it twice with a single piece of thread so that it goes maybe a little bit faster? Or do I want to deal with the tangling? So I don't have an answer yet. So if one of you have an answer.
Well, Roberta shares it. 3 weeks for her, laugh out loud. And Susan thinks it might take her a little longer too.
It's not what I usually do. I like the stitch and do's. They go fairly quick, but it is a precise way of doing things. So long as you can see and find the holes, you definitely want to do it in a lighted area. And I'm pretty blind, so for me to be able to see it with my readers, I think that it does pretty good. So when you do finish this off, you would just normally finish it off with a little bit of tape on the back. I'm not going to finish it off completely yet, but we are going to talk about what we did. So once I'm done with doing a little bit more of the embroidery, we'll go to actually putting a couple of these cards together, because this card is not on Miri at this time. And honestly, just those little bit of additions really brightened the card up a lot. So you can really see the differences. And I swore to myself that I was going to go through and measure these last night to see how the size for cutting the Miri and what size I needed for the card to be. And I realized that I left the examples here with Debbie. So I will have to measure as we go. Okay, so this is one of the two that use the stem concept with the 1, count 3, go back 2, put 1 through the hole that's empty in front, count back 2, go through the hole. So these took me the longest. Out of all the different options, these were the two that took me a little bit longer. And it was just because I was learning a new kind of stitch. I can't say everybody has stitched up a hem of some sort or sewed on a button. But I'm thinking that a good amount of us have had to do that. And so with just doing straight type stitching in the past, these other ones were a lot faster. But these did take the time. So if I want to say that something took time, it's these. And I would say plan on, for me to say that the first time was about 4 hours, and how much I did on each of the cards kind of helped me guess that it would probably be closer to 3 hours. I will say that each one of these cards will take an hour. So just plan on when you want to sit down and do these 2 cards, that these 2 are the ones that are going to take you an hour apiece. And the Christmas trees and the presents this one actually takes the least amount of time. It's the presents one. But just this one is more about quickly going through it. You don't have to look as close. It can be really quick, especially if you've been doing sewing before.
Right.
So hopefully that answers those questions for you. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my stitch and do thread. Maybe, if it hasn't rolled off, there it is. Okay, so this thread is thinner than the green and red thread, and it's definitely thinner than the gold. So with this, I would recommend that you go ahead and you do a double thread on it. And again, you may want to do it as 2 separate ones if that makes it easier for you. I don't know how that will turn out and look as in the long run, but hopefully it will Hopefully it will come out similar if you were to just do a single thread through a few different times. This is the end of the thread, and so it kind of comes out a little bit curly.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't notice it in the long run. It seems to stretch out pretty quick. I'm going to actually just do shorter versions of this needle and thread in doubles, just so that I don't end up having the tangles in the back. It will mean, though, that I have to quit talking for just a second just to be able to thread my needle. Can't figure out why I can't do that. This thread, though, is so much easier to thread through the hole. Okay. So what you can see from the back, there are sections that are through here that I haven't done yet. And then I left just a little bit down here at the end. You can, if you decide that you don't want to have to do the threads in the middle, you won't know that it was required. In other words, you can take it as a suggestion. So if you get to a point where you're like, I don't know, you should be able to move those through without ever having to worry about them. Again, this is one of those cards that I already did all the holes in, and I recommend that you do all your holes first. It'll make it a lot quicker when you get ready to pick it up. So these are the stem ones, and I'll try and go back and forth so you can see from the back. How these will work. And has everyone been able to see okay with where the camera angles and everything are at? Because this is a much smaller item that we're working on. So because I am starting where it wasn't because I restarted, I have to make sure that I remember to count back my 2 and go through. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this, was you can't just start stitching from there and do your 1, 2, 3 and then go back 2 and 1, 2, 3 and go back 2. You have to, wherever you start, go back 2 before you get to the next one. And the same thing will happen for the front direction as well. So there's your 2, go back down through your hole. But in this particular case, because we would normally count 3 forward, so here was my first one, I would go 1, 2, 3, and then go back 2. So you want to make sure that you go both directions. Into the third one. And now you should, oops, that is not my third one. Sorry, guys. Got the right one here. Yep. Okay. So from there, go back your 2, go to your 1. Otherwise, you will end up with a lull right there, which won't be full. So count back 2, 1, 2. This is much harder, guys, just because of the fact that I'm not used to holding it this far away from me. Maybe I need stronger readers. I will tell you that this Stitch and Do thread does not tangle as much as the other threads. I found that that was a difference between the two different kinds of thread that I really realized that I liked. Okay. Through the next hole.
Susan's signing off since it's now past 1 over there.
Well, have a good night's rest, Susan.
We'll see us on Saturday.
Have a great few days. Okay. So then you're going to go back through the next hole. You can see them better on the back because of how light they are on the back compared to the darkness of the front. So count back 2, 1, 2. To the next hole. Count back 2, 1, 2. So that's how you would start and stop if you have a thread that you've run out of thread on. This would need to be the same kind of a concept. And when you're just doing it right after you've run out of thread, it's going to be easier for you to remember where you're at too. This was, I think, the first one that I did the other night. So picking it back up with a hole makes it a little bit harder to remember. Okay, so we're going to count 1, 2. And then in through. Now this is the last ending piece. So you go back your 2. I've found that it's weak there and it's thinner and doesn't have a good solid standing if I don't go back up and then do the next one up from that and then go back 2. You need to build up your thread work. So even though it has a thread already in it, that's okay. Go through and move your 2 back to finish that off. I don't know how much you can see, but you can really see the difference in the thickness if it were in person. So I don't know how much the camera picked up, but it definitely makes a huge difference. You can then go back through and do each one of these lines. It's the same kind of concept where you're doing the go forward 3, back 2, put it into the next empty hole, go back 2, into the empty hole, go back 2. So that's how it works for these. And the reason why you have to is because there's a curve to the picture. It may not look like it. It may look like it's kind of straight. And I thought, do I really have to do that? I can just do a straight stitch. Nope, there's enough of a curve here that you will find that it will not look good. So you'll want to make sure that you do that stem stitch all the way around. And then obviously, gotta cut that off, finish it up. I'm getting my 2 kinds mixed up here, guys. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So this is our straight one. And I think that you have a choice. Really, honestly, I think you've got a choice. This one, I went ahead and I put through gold on each little spot here, on the inside as well. There's a little hole here to show that. But I made sure that I went all the way around the outside of the package, so this kind of looks like a ribbon or print through it, but I still went ahead and put gold lining right through that end of each red one. And I think that that's important to do. You may not decide that that's how you want to do it, but that is totally, I think, just a personal choice. And on this one, you can see that the hole is there, or I should say the mark for the hole is there. And so it does show to put them all the way around, but you don't have to. So it really is, again, one of those things that you may want or not want to do. So I went ahead and I left this section of it without the holes, so that you can see how quick and how simple it is. You just are lining up your pin onto that white round circle and just pushing it on through. If you have, you should be able to just go to the end of the pin, and that will not go all the way through to the other through to the other side. If it does happen that way, where you've pushed too hard through your foam, you can actually shove the needle up inside, and then you won't be able to get as far, obviously, because you won't have one of these around. And so you're just going through and you're marking each hole with your pinprick. Okay. And that's it. So if they're all ready to go for you, it makes life so much faster and so much easier. So here's my short little thread. And I'm going to go ahead and start here. Why not? Seems like a good place to start. Okay. Now on these, you may want to have a longer thread than I do, apparently. With these, you'll want to go through, and you can't just go in and out. Like I showed you with the straight section, you want to not just leave a gap in between. You could cover up the hole. You could cover up that hole. Here's my next one, and I could just come back up and through. I could just come back up and through and keep moving forward, going up and through this hole, and you would cover your white spots so you wouldn't see those white spots anymore. But what that will do is, though, it will leave those gaps. And if you don't mind the gaps, then you've got a faster card. If you mind the gaps, then you'll want to make sure that you go back and then forward and back. This is where you have to make sure, too, because you are going forward and back a lot, that you're keeping your lines pulled. So if you go to the next one, so here's your next hole, putting it up, pulling it through, going back again. Make sure that before you go through the hole again, that this one is pulled taut, because sometimes you can end up with a little bubble like this between one of your threads. This happens to be two because I pulled both up. There we go. Okay, so I have this one thread that's sitting here, and I don't know how much you can see it or not. I really kind of doubt that you'll be able to see it. But by putting this little loop through there, and I don't pull it taut, you'll end up not being able to pull it by the next time that you go through the next hole. So once I pull it here and put my needle in and through, this becomes a lot harder. So just always keep an eye on your last stitch that you made to make sure that it's nice and pulled all the way through. So that can happen with your double stitching a lot, where you may have to double check your stitches. But as soon as I pulled this needle through this hole, if I had that loop still there, I would have to fight with it in order to get it to work. And this is a perfect example of having to pull your tautness through. Look, I thought I was going to get away without having to do it, so I was just going to teach it. Ha ha ha. Okay, so I've made sure that I've pulled those nice and taut. You do not want to pull so hard that you're making a hole in your hole. In other words, where you've got your little holes, if you pull this thread too tight, it will tear your hole and make it a little bit bigger. So you don't want to do that, but you do want to keep them snug. So when I pull here, it automatically snugs down that one, and I'm going to the opposite direction. And that seems to pull it snug without it having to be something that you're fighting with or something that you forget to do. So again, I'm coming down and through to make sure that I'm snug. I'm pulling to the right, and right here I can see that I missed a section of thread. So I have to come back out and just pull it on through the rest of the way. And it is okay. Again, if you can't get that quite there because you can't get it taut enough or snug enough for whatever reason, you can always pull that off to the side and tape it. And that's what I'm going to do, because I didn't check the back end before I pulled the next stitch, and now I've kind of locked that stitch in. I can fiddle with it and fight with it, but rather than doing that, I just make it very simple on myself, and that will just hold it in its place. So go back up and through and down. They do not have you do the bow. You can do the bow yourself. If you decide that you want to add more to this card, you absolutely can go through and poke little holes all the way through, up and around, and use your stem stitch, and you can do it. So if you are somebody that wants to give yourself a little bit more of a challenge, then absolutely go for it. I think that it would be beautiful. I did not want to do it because I felt like that would just be adding more time to what is already a little bit of a timely process to teach. So making sure that those are nice and snug, and then moving on to the next. And it literally goes up and around, and you've got that nice straight stitch. So it is a lot easier than some of the other types of stitches that are out there, and it can go fairly quick. And again, I will tell you that I did this in a single stitch, and to have doubled it, it will stand out a lot more. So I don't know if you can see the differences from where you're at, but it definitely makes a difference for mine if I'm in person looking at it.
A little bit we can see on the camera.
Yeah. Okay, if you hit a corner, it's okay to just jump on ahead. You'll have a triangle here on the back. That's okay, because what we're wanting to do is get back here anyways to this back corner. So it's not what your back looks like, it's what's out on front that matters. I was hoping that Debbie would watch this and decide that maybe she wanted to give it a try. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Nope. Probably not.
So does that make sense to you guys on how that works and how we do both the straight and the stem stitch. I think I've done a few different examples. I haven't done the example of the stocking completely yet. And if you would like me to, I can absolutely do that. I will say that you do not want to just do your stitch back and forth like this in the straight parts of the stocking. Yeah, it's straight and it's straight right here, but you will find that your stitching will look different and it will look odd. So you want to just keep that stem stitch going, even though it seems like it's a little bit more of a pain to do. And when I say it's a pain to do, it's not hard. It's just a matter of you do have to keep track of your 1 forward, 2 back, 1 forward, 2 back once you get started. And I think that for me, I was able to quickly whip through this one in comparison this time around because it became a lot easier because I didn't figure out that stitch and how to count it differently than the directions gave until I was about halfway through this one. So I'm like, wait a minute, there's got to be an easier way to think this through. So what I am going to do though is I'm going to come back to this one and we're going to make our little square around it. There we go. Make sure you cut the backs, and I do not have enough here. Now, because I wrapped yours around business cards for this kit, you should have it to the point where it's pretty straight. For me, because I left it on the bolt, on the little spool, because of that, it's got that curly to it, we may find that this does not go as well.
Stephanie says, I've enjoyed your instructions. Good reminders for me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I know that this is a little bit more of a repetitious type of a feel than a usual class will go because it is repetitious, but that's okay. In fact, I don't know. I like it. It gives me a little bit of calm. I need a lot of that in my life. Okay. So, here to go around the corner, you're just basically going to start at one end. And somebody else may do it totally different than I do it. I try and avoid wasting any of my thread, especially because of the fact that I wasn't sure that I was going to have enough. And I did. I had leftovers to where I went, oh yeah, we could do a double. Let's try this as a double. Or, oh yeah, we could have not had a problem with it. But basically what I did was I went down and through here. And then rather than trying to go all the way around and back stitch this, because this literally, this would be where you would have to go, which would be all the way back over into here on this corner to come out, to turn around and come back over here. So to me, that was a waste of my thread. So instead, since I already knew that I had this hole right here, I moved this way. So again, make sure that your pieces are nice and taut. Look, that even though that curly, crazy thread, it tightened right down and snapped against the line when I pulled it snug. So then I'm jumping to the next line over here. And then I'm going down back to the bottom. Now, why would I do that? Because I've got a line here, but I need to come from here up to here. And so I'm going to literally interchange those back and forth. And when you do it the second time around, you will find that you'll go up to the next space. And it will be the least amount of back and forth on the back here to where it does save your thread a little bit. So if I were going to do the next set, cut it and rethread because I didn't pull off enough. Does this pick up the sound more than the last one? It seems like I can hear every click when I set something down, guys. I'm sorry if it makes a loud noise. It could just be that we've been making this noise all along and I couldn't hear it.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm just going to pretend like I had the long enough thread that I pulled up enough through, and this is just a continuation of that line so that I can show you how to finish this section off. And again, I have that worry that I'm running out of thread, and I don't want to end up with a whole bunch of knots either. So I might go with a little bit of a shorter one just to make it easier on me as much as possible so that I don't tangle in front of you guys and then you're sitting here watching me untangle for forever. Okay, these ones that are here on the corner, you don't really see the holes. So one of the things that you have to do is kind of put your finger where you feel that it's happening. Just like that. And with your finger there, you'll know that you reach the hole because the needle goes through very easy. So it actually becomes kind of a feel and touch instead of a sight. So now that I have these two sides done and the top and the bottom done, now I can go back down here and go across the top. That, and then go back through this hole and now go down. So I went in through here, back up to here, over, came down through this hole, and now I'm finishing up this line of the square. So I now have 3 of my lines done for the top and bottom of the bigger square, and I now have 3 done for the middle square. So it comes in really handy, really nice to do it this direction. So again, we'll just come out here to the outer edge. You'll go right through the same places where you've already been, and then go back around and through. And of course, I didn't quite make enough, but what you're going to do is that you're going to come back up into here. Oh, hey, I might actually have enough. Look there. Okay. So we now have all of those done, and by pulling them snug, not too taut, where I've got holes. And this is really where you can see the importance too of taping, because look, I don't know that you can see it quite well, but since I didn't tape down yet, this one moves a lot. and it actually pops up the thread. So that just goes to show you how snug you have to be all the way around to begin with. So think of it as being anchored in places. And each one of those holes kind of anchors it for you. So once you go through a hole and back out the other side, it gets harder to make that taunt again. Okay, so there's this one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to where I've done the rest of the items. So these two have kind of the simpler pieces to it, but these also are the ones that say words. So we've got this one as our example, and this one, and these are the two that say Merry Christmas and Happy Christmas. And when I made the kit, I made it up to where you have lots of other things that you can do. So there is peace on earth, glad tidings, Christmas blessing, Merry Christmas, and Happy Christmas. So you can really mix and match those however you would like to put them onto these two cards. So what I did was I just basically eyeballed it and put it right here in the middle. And make sure that you double check, because these little guys tend to want to hold on to a few of the things that it has in the middles. So sometimes you could see that there's not a hole where the A is supposed to be, and you can really tell that by looking here and seeing where all your little dots are. So if I've got my dots where they belong, then I know that I've pulled everything that I need to pull. You roll, catch it on your finger, and pull. So this one I decided to do differently, and I did Christmas blessing. And I think that I pulled my Christmas out too far, so I'm going to move that in just a little bit. I really appreciate that these dazzles can handle a little bit of dazzles, star forms, jujus. I think that's how they're pronounced, but they're spelled Gigi, J-E-J-E. And each of those companies, Find It Trading also has theirs for their stickers. I really appreciate how you can just lift it right back up and put it on again, and it's not a problem. Okay, this is where our poinsettias come in, and I covered mine up because I was not thrilled with the circle that I made, because I felt like it was wrong and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. And last night I figured out how to fix it to make it a nice little pretty curl coil with that little trick that I showed you where you pull up to pull anything up and over. And you cannot tell here on this at all that it has an odd stitch because of how tiny it really is. And so in order to catch it, I just truly went through on one side on the outside of it and then came up and around to the next hole. And it actually is right there on the very top where I had to catch it, because all of this was starting to come over this way into more of a string art look. So now that I'm pleased with that little hole, I think that I am going to go ahead and move up my poinsettia to right above the hole. So instead, it will go over and look like a little pretty hanging on the top of the ornament hook. And you should have one of each of these in your pack. I made up all of the kit, but bless Brittany, she went through and put in the poinsettias because I had forgotten to pull the poinsettias when I was making the kits, and they were still downstairs. So thank you, Brittany, for going through and doing some of my kit for me. So this is our large one. We have a medium. I did it to where I tried not to have them all straight up and down in a row, but you can do that way where all the prongs match up exactly, but I wanted to give it a little bit of a twist. And then our one in the middle is not quite the smallest one here, but it is small. It's the smallest actual poinsettia, in my opinion. The other ones are kind of more of a star. So there is the finishing for all of this one, except for my piece in here. So remember how I said that it wasn't going to matter, that people wouldn't see the back of this, right?
You did say that.
What do I do now? Okay, well, the good news is that they already thought of that. And in your pack, you will have very fine, basically copy paper in there. You're going to fold it in half. No, there's no rights or wrongs to this. Just give it a fold. And then you want to put a side of tape on this side and one on the other side. Just flip it on over.
Sheila from North Dakota has just joined.
Hi, Sheila. How are you? I have no idea where we're at on time. I can't see any of those things.
You're at 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Okay. Hey, we're doing pretty good. Okie dokie. So go ahead and you can take off both if you want. If you don't and you want to just make sure that you get it right, and you don't have to worry about it, I normally would just pull off both of my sides and stick it in, but we're going to go ahead and do it this way instead. So peel off your one side, slide it, hold it at an angle like this, and slide it right into where the envelope should go. The inside insert should go. And then you can peel off the other side. And some people like to do it this way. Some people like to do it where they just peel off both sides and put them on. Do not put your tape on one of these two sides, because when you do that, when you go to fold, it won't fold right. So you have to keep your inserts snug up against your line that you have in the middle. Now, how does that work then for not being able to see this? The card is stiff enough that all I did was I took one, put it right here, little tiny piece, put it right there, laid it on down, and it closes just fine. It will fight you if you try and put a whole thing there, but nobody is going to see what the other side looks like. I mean, they really have to try to get in there and poke on through, right? So, and then they can't see any of your mistakes because it's too close and it's at a weird angle, so you're good. So that would be me looking inside of a card to see how it was made. But for most people that you would give this to, they're not going to look in, so they'll never see your little bits of mess. Now that's on this one and on this one. This one has that last one I did Christmas blessings. I think we'll just use the Merry Christmas on this one. Pull it off. Right on. Oh, look, I missed the C originally and it just stuck to my finger. Look at that. I have to pick it off the card. And I put my Christmas on before my Merry because the Christmas is the longer of the two words. And it's a lot easier to move one word out just a little bit that's smaller than it is to move the big one. And it looks like mine went down a little bit. So lift back up, pull it up a little bit, and now it's nice and straight. Okay. Now you can go through and do your little, I put on just a little tiny poinsettia star right there. I didn't like the bow the way that it was. Now you could do that in one of two ways. You could take your gold thread or your green thread or your red thread, and you could make a couple of holes and just run it through a straight little piece, kind of just go in the top, out the bottom, in the top, out the bottom, and kind of fill that up to where it actually looks like a bow. But to me, that looks like it doesn't have that 3-dimension piece there. So that is why I chose to do this. And it is one of these little tiny guys. It does not need to be a big one, but I put it there specifically because of the thought process that I had about needing something for that middle of the bow. You could go with bigger. I honestly don't know how many pieces of extra got sent to you. So it is possible that you only have one of each. If you do not, and you do have a few extras, then you can always take and use a bigger one. And a bigger one looks like that. And you may like that more.
You hold that up for us?
Yep. There's no rights or wrongs. Just a matter of
I like the bigger one.
Opinion. You like the bigger one.
Yep.
See, that's how it works. Okie dokie. So these, you would put the insert into this one just the same way. I'm not going to do that yet because I haven't finished this one off. Okay, so we've got our stocking and our tree. And I've got some measuring to do, so let me clear out my space here. Okay, so the card itself is 4 1/8. So we're wanting to go a little bit bigger than that. And this is how I did it. Okay, I just went and I took my three pieces of tape all the way across. Now, I don't trust myself as Debbie trusts herself, and she just is able to put it on there perfectly each and every time. I have no idea how she does that. So I actually take my middle one a lot of the times, and I will make a middle one and put my tape flag in it like that so I can pull it from the side so I don't have so much sticking to the edges. So if that works for you, in this particular case, sorry, I don't know that you could see that because I forget. We've got it zoomed in really close. Okay, so for the card, you would normally drop it right on like this and put it on. And what I was saying is that I sometimes will not get these straight. I do not have the ability somehow. It doesn't line up for me. I'm always nervous about doing it. So I actually make tape flags out of mine and do that for my middle one as well. And I just pull it off to the side a little bit. I also will do a tape flag from opposite ends like that. So then that way I feel like I have the most control over it, is really what it boils down to. And then you just take it and do it the way that we've been shown to do it. He does such an awesome job at it. And not on the phone, apparently. And then I still have my little flags that I can just pull right out and lay right down. And then that way, if I need to pull it up for some reason, I've got that, just that little tiny corner caught. Okay, so the size that I actually made the cards is...
Stephanie's saying good night.
Good night, Stephanie. 4 1/8. By 6. So 4 1/8 by 6. I knew that we were going to be sending you with a 4 by 6 little piece of gold, so that worked quite nicely. Okay. Got a little bit of white at the very top, so let's fix that. Okay. So from there on our Christmas tree, and yes, I can find things here on our Christmas tree. I just took and I cut it down just a hair on each side. So when I say a hair, just maybe 1/8 of an inch all the way around. You cannot, you may kind of get this feeling like you should save. You can't see a thing that I'm doing. Sorry guys. You're gonna take your 1/8, you're gonna put it along here, and you may be thinking, oh, I've got to save this and not give it 1/8 of an inch all the way around, but that's what you want to do. You just want to cut the card on the other side too. So go on through, go ahead and cut that side, because you're basically making your card into a topper. And it is the exact same process for your other one. So 1/8 of an inch all the way around off of the actual card. And you cut your card to 4 1/8 and 6 inches evenly for the actual Mary and the card base. Okay, you would normally attach that on. Again, I haven't finished it, so I'm not going to. But I can still do this even though it hasn't been sewn yet. This piece definitely has those little pop-up pieces, so you really have to watch. And one of the things that I noticed that kept the pieces from popping up is if I would pull it, rather than just pulling it off, if you pull it sideways, it seems to take off the majority of those extras. So I had quite a few because I forgot that, and I just kind of pulled it off, and I ended up with a few of them. But now I was able to get them all off very quickly and easily by just laying it back down and re-pulling from this side. Okay. So you're going to want to make sure that you put it down a little bit further than the actual square by half of one of these circles. And the reason why is because it's going to come out on the other end of the section, and this would be tucked way up here and it would look like there's a hole. So in order for it to be even, you cut one side, cut the other side right at that half, excuse me, make sure that you have a half, and then you're going to cut up, half up. Okay, and we did send you with enough that you should have enough for both, but as you can see, that one isn't quite as long. It's close. But I just ended up using those for the middle. And I start right where that sticker ends and stops. Okay, and the reason why I do that is because those little 4 pieces that I showed you right here, this is where they come in. This is what joins your corners together. So you peel off just one of them. They normally would come in a strip of 6 straight lines, and then they have enough to make 3 full cards with their corners. And so what you'll do is you'll just come right up here and pop that right in the corner, and it just blends right in over the top and it joins them. So you don't have to worry about, oh, did I match this one up exactly where it's supposed to be with this one coming this way. It gets to be a pain. So these corners are really a lifesaver, and it makes it quick and easy. And so by doing that, those are our pieces. I'm not going to finish it off. Guess I'm finishing off the bottom because I can't find the rest. And this is how much I have left. So you can absolutely do these borders and have 3 full cards if they're going to be the 4x6 size card. But keep in mind that's a little bit smaller because it's on the inner side of my card. It's not on the outside. Okay, and then I took the little itty bitties. They're little tiny itty bitties in the gold with the silver exterior, and I put them right here on the top. And you can decide whether you want to put a little bit over the actual threading or if you want to set it down in a ways a little bit. It's totally up to you. I put mine on top of my threading a little bit to give it that 3D effect because it is a 3D with that thread on there. It makes it a 3D card. So to put it flat on, it may look too flat. That's my opinion. Okay, so that's how we make this one. We would normally attach this with tape flags right here on the front. That definitely on backwards, of course, because that's what I do. So if I were to attach this, I would attach it on with tape flags, one on each side, put it on, and now you really don't see anything. You don't have to use the insert here unless you want to use the insert on these 2 cards. And they're both done the exact same way. And my little poinsettias here are, again, it's a medium, a small, and then a dot. So in here, you guys have some dots. There's one here, here, here. So it went from a medium to a small and then to a dot. And you can decide what it is that you like best on yours too. You may find that you don't like them at all. And on this one, I put a little poinsettia leaf as well. So, does anybody have any questions? Because I think that that kind of wraps up what what I did in order to create these. I think that it has given you a good starting point. Sorry I can't sit and sew this the whole time. I think I'd lose my voice in order to do that. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
No questions yet.
Okay. And I don't know what is for Saturday. What is for Saturday, Bryce? Can you tell me? Maybe one of them can tell us. Is it one of these?
Looking at the stream for Saturday is
This one.
spring to fall.
Okay, so it is the whole thing. So it is for 6 cards. I know that I put them in all the boxes and I'm like, ooh, this is really pretty. But then I don't have the opportunity to make as much as I wish that I could make right now. But that's okay, because teaching my granddaughter school every day is more important.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one. And it's got the, oh, there we go. Makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
Nope.
This way.
This way. There we go. Here we go. All right. Now I know where it's at. Okay. And it says at the very bottom, there are words. Look at that. It says, you are blooming lovely. That's really cute. You are blooming lovely. Okay, so that's the first one. This one says, thanks so much. One person can make a difference, and that person is you. And as usual, Debbie can figure out how to make a deco card pack really stretch. So I'm gonna guess based on what I see that it's 3, because you get 1, no, you get 2 pieces of cardstock with it. How does that work? With the deco larges, I can't remember right off the top of my head. I think you get 1 piece of cardstock with it. So she's been able to figure out ways to make them all stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the tulips with tea books, pretty little vase with a bow. The inside she's done with a piece of insert and some of her border. I did not look on the inside of these. Oh, look, she's got inserts and I'm still in the wrong spot. There we go.
That's pretty.
That one's really pretty. See, I should have opened these up and taken a peek. This one's used a border as well with an insert piece. So she's going to talk about inserts too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so here's another one. This one does not have the border, and this border is actually part of the cardstock behind it, whereas this is going to be, my guess, the other side of the paper. I always like to guess, well, what did she do with that? I wonder how. Oops, this one has a little border and an insert, and it looks like, I love this one. It's got all the little butterflies on it. And it's got the full picture. And this one says, wishing you every wonderful thing that a happy birthday could possibly bring. So those are the ones that Debbie is going to do on Saturday. And I hope that you guys have a good rest of your few days before you see her on Saturday. And I hope you had a lot of fun with this, because I sure did. Thanks.